The morning alarm rang through the Galaxy Council building like it did every day for the past 200 years. But something was different today. Ambassador Krix of the Vorthon Empire rushed through the long hallways, his 6 legs clicking on. The metal floor he carried news that would shake the entire galaxy to its core. The council chamber was huge, with representatives from 50 different alien species sitting in their special chairs designed for their unique body shapes. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked like walking crystals. The air buzzed with different languages and strange sounds as everyone waited to hear why this emergency meeting had been called. Chairman Vex stood at the center of the room, his tall blue body glowing softly under the bright lights. He had been leading the Galaxy Council for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. His voice boomed across the chamber as he spoke. "The humans are gone," he announced. The room fell completely silent. Every alien eye stalk, antenna, and sensing organ turned toward Chairman Vex. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Ambassador Krix stepped forward, holding a data pad in his clawed hands. "The information is confirmed," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Every human colony, every human station, every human outpost across the entire galaxy, they are all empty." The reptilian chancellor was the first to break the silence. He was a large green creature with sharp teeth and cold yellow eyes. His long tail swished behind him as he stood up. "Good," he hissed loudly. "Those primitive mammals were always getting in our way. Now we can finally run things properly." Several other council members nodded in agreement. The insectoid queen clicked her mandibles in what might have been approval. The machine intelligence representative made beeping sounds that translated to satisfaction. Even the usually quiet crystal beings hummed in harmony, showing they were pleased. Ambassador Krix looked worried. He touched his datapad and images appeared on the giant screen behind Chairman Vex. The images showed empty human cities with lights still on. Cars sat in driveways as if their owners had just stepped inside for a moment. Meals were left half-eaten on tables. Coffee cups still steamed in the morning air. "This happened everywhere," Krix explained. "On Earth, on Mars, on the mining colonies, on the research stations, even on the deep space exploration ships, every human facility shows the same thing." They just walked away. The council members looked at the images with growing confusion. How could an entire species just disappear overnight? There were billions of humans spread across thousands of worlds. They ran businesses, operated machinery, and worked alongside aliens in every corner of the galaxy. The screen changed to show security footage from Luna City, the biggest human settlement on Earth's moon. The video showed Captain Kim walking slowly through the corridors of the massive mining facility. He carried only a small travel bag over his shoulder. Behind him, the giant machines that extracted materials from the moon sat silent and abandoned. Kim reached the transport bay where a small ship waited. For him, he turned around once to look back at the facility he had managed for 15 years. Then he climbed into the ship and flew away. The timestamp showed this happened at exactly midnight, standard galactic time. Similar videos played from a dozen different worlds. Human supervisors, engineers, doctors, and teachers all walking calmly to transport ships. They left behind homes, jobs, and lives they had built over decades. Some had lived on alien worlds for their entire lives, yet they all left at the same time. The Aquatic Federation representative bubbled through her water-filled helmet asking, "But where did they go?" "Nobody knows," Krix replied. "We have searched every known human world, every colony, every secret base, every single human facility is empty, but there are no signs of struggle, no evidence of forced evacuation. They planned this." The crystal beings sang a question in their musical language, which the translation computers rendered as, "Why would they leave without telling?" Anyone? Chairman Vex pulled up another screen showing the galaxy-wide communication logs. In the past year, humans sent fewer and fewer messages to alien governments. Human businesses stopped taking new contracts with non-human clients. Human doctors began transferring their alien patients to other medical facilities. They were preparing, Ambassador Krix said slowly. They have been planning this departure for months, maybe years. The reptilian chancellor laughed a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. So what, he said, let them run back to whatever primitive world they came from. We are advanced civilizations. We built faster than light travel. We created artificial intelligence. We don't need some hairy mammals to help us. But even as he spoke, problems were already starting. The great orbital city of New Centauri had lost power 3 hours ago. The fusion reactors that provided energy to 10 million aliens had shut down automatically. The only person who knew how to restart them was human engineer Lee, who had maintained those reactors for 20 years. The massive cargo ships that moved goods between star systems sat grounded at spaceports across the galaxy. Their navigation computers displayed error messages that no alien technician could understand. The complex programs had been written by human specialist Park, who understood the strange mathematics needed to plot courses through hyperspace. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the alien workers stood around the silent drilling equipment. Human supervisor Cho had been the only one who knew the secret tricks needed to keep the ancient machines running. The rare metals those machines extracted were used to build everything from starship engines to medical devices. The insectoid queen received an urgent message through her communication implant. Her compound eyes went wide with shock. The seed vault, she clicked frantically. The genetic seed vault on Harvest Prime is sealed. Human botanist Song was the only one. With the access codes, Harvest Prime was the agricultural center that grew food for half the galaxy. Without access to the seed vault to replace damaged crops, billions of aliens would face starvation within months. More reports flooded in the atmospheric. Processors on 12 different worlds had stopped working. The water purification systems on the desert planets were failing. The power grids that connected entire star systems were going offline one by one. In every case, the same pattern emerged. Humans had been quietly maintaining critical systems that everyone else had taken for granted. They fixed problems before anyone else even noticed there were problems. They kept ancient equipment running long past its designed lifespan. They solved impossible technical challenges with creative solutions that other species considered primitive, but somehow always worked. The reptilian chancellor was no longer laughing. His own homeworld depended on planetary shields that human contractor Han had installed 50 years ago. Those shields were the only thing protecting his people from the deadly radiation of their dying sun chairman. Vex looked around the council chamber at the growing panic on alien faces. The comfortable assumption that humans were just helpful but ultimately replaceable had been shattered. The galaxy was discovering that humans had not been working for alien civilizations. They had been holding alien civilizations together as the first day without humans ended. The Galaxy Council faced a terrifying truth. They had built their great interstellar society on the backs of a species they had barely noticed. Now that foundation was gone, and everything was starting to crumble. The humans had departed as quietly as they had lived among the aliens, but their absence spoke louder than their presence ever had. The galaxy was about to learn just how much they had depended on the species they had always taken for granted. 3 weeks had passed since the humans disappeared, and the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined. Chairman Vex sat in his office, surrounded by stacks of emergency reports that grew taller every hour. His blue skin had turned pale, and his usual confident glow was barely visible. The first major disaster happened on the trade route between the spiral arm colonies and the core worlds. Massive cargo haulers that were bigger than some moons sat frozen in space, like dead whales floating in an ocean. The ship's navigation computer showed nothing but error messages in languages that no alien could read. Ambassador Crix stood before a holographic display showing the stranded fleet. "We have tried everything," he said to the emergency council meeting. "Every computer expert from every species has looked at these systems. The programs are too complex. Human specialist Park wrote them using mathematical theories that our best scientists don't understand." The insectoid queen clicked her mandibles nervously. Her people were already running out of the special minerals they needed for their egg-laying chambers. Those minerals came from the outer rim, and without the cargo ships, there was no way to transport them. The queen faced the horrible possibility that her species might not be able to reproduce. Meanwhile, on the mining world of Kepler 442b, the situation was getting desperate. The alien workers had gathered around the silent drilling equipment like mourners at a funeral. The massive machines that burrowed deep into the planet's core were more complicated than anyone realized. Supervisor Bex, a four-armed creature from the mechanical union, tried pressing buttons and pulling levers, but nothing happened. The drilling equipment was older than most of the workers, but human supervisor Cho had somehow kept it running perfectly. Every morning, Cho would walk around the machines, listening to their sounds and making tiny adjustments that no one else understood. Now the machines sat quiet and cold. The rare metals they extracted were needed to build everything from starship engines to hospital equipment. Without those metals, the entire galactic economy would collapse within months. Already 3 major shipyards had stopped production because they were running out of the special alloys that only came from Kepler 442b. The crystal beings on their homeworld of Harmony faced an even stranger problem. Their beautiful crystal cities were designed to sing in the wind, creating music that could be heard from space. But the crystals were starting to crack. The harmonic frequencies that kept them stable were failing. For 50 years, human physicist Nam had worked with the crystal beings to maintain the resonance fields that protected their cities. Nam understood both music and mathematics in ways that the crystal beings found impossible to explain to other species. The human had made thousands of tiny adjustments to keep the crystals singing in perfect harmony. Without those adjustments, the crystal cities were slowly breaking apart. The haunting music that had made Harmony famous across the galaxy was being replaced by the sound of cracking stone. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, the situation was becoming critical. The vast green fields that fed billions of people across dozens of worlds were turning brown. Human botanist Song had been more than just a gardener. Song understood the complex relationships between soil chemistry, plant genetics, and weather patterns in ways that amazed even the most advanced agricultural computers. The automated farming systems were failing one by one. Crops that should have been thriving were dying. Computer models showed that the soil should be perfect, but plants were withering anyway. Song had made secret adjustments to fertilizer mixtures and planting schedules that kept the delicate balance needed for maximum crop production. Now alien farmers stood helplessly in their failing fields, watching food supplies for half the galaxy slowly disappear. The emergency food reserves would last maybe 6 months if rationing was strict. After that, billions of beings would face starvation. The Galaxy Council called emergency sessions every day, but the meetings were becoming chaos instead of solutions. Old grudges that had been buried for decades were surfacing like poison bubbles in stagnant water. The reptilian chancellor accused the Aquatic Federation of hoarding water supplies. The Aquatic Federation claimed the machine intelligence was sabotaging their filtration systems. The machine intelligence calculated that biological species were too inefficient and should be eliminated to save resources without human peacekeepers to mediate disputes. These arguments were escalating into threats. The careful diplomatic balance that had kept the galaxy peaceful for generations was crumbling. Species that had worked together for centuries were now viewing each other with suspicion and hostility. The worst fighting broke out in the Outer Rim territories, where 3 different species claimed the same mineral-rich asteroid field. In the past, human negotiator Day would have helped them find a fair solution that satisfied everyone. But now laser cannons were charging and warships were gathering for what could become the first major war in over 100 years, back on the core worlds. The problems were getting more basic and more frightening. The energy grid that powered interstellar communication was breaking down. Quantum relay stations that had worked perfectly for decades were going offline, one by one. The relay stations had been designed by human engineers Jin and Yoon, using principles that other species had dismissed as crude but functional. The aliens preferred elegant mathematical solutions that worked perfectly under ideal conditions. But Jin and Yoon built systems that worked even when things went wrong. Now, with quantum relays failing across the galaxy, messages that once traveled instantly between star systems were taking days or weeks to arrive. The great galactic communication network that connected thousands of worlds was fragmenting into isolated islands of silence. Ambassador Crix received a delayed message from the border worlds that made his blood run cold. An ancient automated defense satellite had come online and was attacking merchant ships. The satellite was supposed to have been deactivated 50 years ago, but somehow it had reactivated itself. The control codes for the satellite were locked in a computer system that only human technician Kang had access to. Kang had maintained hundreds of old defense systems across the galaxy, keeping them updated and properly secured. Without Kang, the old systems were either failing to protect their assigned areas or going rogue and attacking everyone. The Galaxy Council headquarters itself was facing evacuation. The ancient building that had housed Galactic government for 300 years was having life support failures. The atmospheric processors that kept the air breathable were breaking down, and repair crews could not figure out how to fix them. Human technician Kang had quietly maintained these systems for years, making repairs with spare parts that were no longer manufactured. The processors should have been replaced decades ago, but bureaucratic delays had pushed the project back again and again. Kang had somehow kept the ancient machines running through pure skill and determination as Ambassador Crix walked through the failing council building, breathing air that was getting thinner every hour. He finally understood the horrible truth. The humans had not just been helpful workers or useful allies. They had been the invisible support structure that held galactic civilization together. Every critical system, every important process, every essential service had human involvement somewhere in the chain. And now that chain was breaking, link by link. The galaxy was discovering that their great interstellar civilization had been built on foundations they never knew existed. The humans had been gone for only 3 weeks, but already the damage was spreading like cracks in a breaking. Damn soon those cracks would become floods, and the floods would become total collapse. Unless someone found a solution quickly, the greatest civilization in galactic history would fall apart completely. But finding a solution required understanding how the humans had made impossible things work. And that understanding was walking away on ships heading toward unknown destinations, carrying knowledge that might be lost forever. 2 months after the humans vanished, entire star systems were going dark across the galaxy. Chairman Vex stood in the emergency command center, watching red warning lights blink on the massive galactic map. Each red light meant another world had lost contact with the rest of civilization. The Centauri system had gone silent 3 days ago. The Vega colonies stopped responding yesterday. Even the great industrial worlds near the galactic core were flickering in and out of communication like dying candles. The invisible network that connected thousands of worlds was collapsing piece by piece. Ambassador Crix rushed into the command center, carrying another stack of disaster reports. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and his eyes showed the strain of weeks without proper sleep. The quantum communication grid is completely failing, he announced to the room full of worried alien officials. The quantum relay stations that carried messages instantly across impossible distances had been designed by human engineers Jin and Yoon 50 years ago. Other species had called the human design primitive and inefficient, but it had worked perfectly for decades. The elegant alien alternatives had all failed during testing, but the crude human system had never stopped working, until now. Without the quantum relays, messages between star systems were traveling at the speed of light, which meant communication delays of years, or even decades. The great galactic civilization that had been united by instant communication was breaking apart into isolated islands of silence. The insectoid queen received the last message from her outer colonies before they went dark completely. Her worker drones on the rim worlds were trapped, without supplies or contact with the hive mind. The queen herself was beginning to show signs of mental breakdown as pieces of her consciousness scattered across unreachable space. Food riots had started on dozens of worlds as supply chains completely collapsed. The sophisticated just-in-time delivery system that had eliminated hunger from most civilized planets depended entirely on human logistics coordinators who could adapt and improvise when unexpected problems arose. Human coordinator Min had managed the food distribution for the entire Orion sector. Min understood not just the mathematical calculations of supply and demand, but also the psychology of different alien species. Min knew that the crystal beings needed their food delivered, in perfect geometric patterns, while the Aquatic Federation required everything to be kept at exactly the right temperature. The alien bureaucrats who tried to replace men could follow the written procedures, but they could not handle the constant stream of unexpected problems that always arose: a transport ship breakdown, a weather delay, a dock worker strike. These were the kinds of challenges that men had solved with quick thinking and creative solutions. Now, without human coordinators, the food distribution system was collapsing everywhere. Warehouse computers showed plenty of food in storage, but none of it was reaching the hungry populations. Alien managers stood helplessly before control panels they did not understand, watching their people starve while food rotted in storage facilities. The situation at Galaxy Council headquarters was becoming desperate. The ancient atmospheric processors that kept the air breathable were failing faster every day. Repair crews had tried everything, but the machines were too old and too complex for anyone to understand. Human technician Kang had maintained these processors for 15 years, using spare parts from dozens of different manufacturers and making custom modifications that kept the ancient systems running. The processors were scheduled for complete replacement 40 years ago, but bureaucratic delays and budget cuts had postponed the project indefinitely. Now the air in the council building was getting thinner and more toxic. Every hour, alien representatives were collapsing during meetings, and several species with sensitive respiratory systems had already been evacuated. The great seat of galactic government would soon be uninhabitable. But the most terrifying problems were appearing in the defense networks. As news of the galactic collapse spread, ancient enemies were beginning to probe the borders, testing the strength of planetary defenses that had protected civilization for centuries. The automated defense systems that had kept hostile forces at bay were failing one by one. Each network had been customized and upgraded by human specialists who understood not just the technology, but the psychology and tactics of potential attackers. Human defense coordinator Wu had spent 30 years studying the attack patterns of the Void Hunters, the mysterious raiders who emerged from dark space to destroy entire colonies. Wu had made thousands of small adjustments to detection grids and weapon systems, creating layered defenses that could adapt to changing enemy tactics. Without Wu, the defense networks were rigid and predictable. The Void Hunters had already destroyed 3 outer rim colonies using tactics that the automated systems could not counter. The beautiful mathematical precision of alien defense computers was no match for enemies who fought with chaos and unpredictability. The reptilian chancellor who had celebrated the human departure now faced his worst nightmare. His homeworld depended on planetary shields that human contractor Han had installed and maintained for 20 years. The shields were the only thing protecting his people from the deadly radiation of their dying sun. Han had made hundreds of small modifications to account for the planet's unique magnetic field and atmospheric conditions. The shield generators were supposed to be replaced every 10 years, but Han had somehow kept the original equipment running far beyond its design limits. Now the shields were failing, and the reptilian chancellor's people were facing extinction from radiation poisoning. The elegant crystal-based shield technology that other species preferred could not handle the chaotic magnetic storms that surrounded the reptilian homeworld. Only Han's crude but adaptable human engineering had been able to protect them. Similar disasters were unfolding across the galaxy. The great crystal cities of harmony were cracking apart as their resonance fields failed. The underwater cities of the Aquatic Federation were flooding as pressure control systems broke down. The machine worlds were grinding to a halt as their central processors overheated without proper cooling systems. Every failure followed the same pattern. Advanced alien technology worked perfectly under ideal conditions, but real conditions were never ideal. They were messy, chaotic, and unpredictable. Human engineers had understood this fundamental truth and had built systems that could handle chaos. Other species built systems that were mathematically perfect but brittle. Humans built systems that were mathematically crude but flexible. When perfect conditions existed, alien technology was superior, but perfect conditions never lasted, and when chaos arrived, only human solutions continued working. Ambassador Crick stood in the failing council chamber, breathing the increasingly toxic air and watching his civilization crumble around him. The holographic displays showed red warning lights spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Each light represented millions of beings facing starvation equipment, failure or worse. For the first time, Crix began to understand what the humans had really been. The galaxy had seen them as maintenance workers, repair technicians, and problem solvers. They were useful but replaceable servants who kept things running while the important species made the big decisions. But the humans had not been servants. They had been teachers trying to show the galaxy how to build things that lasted, how to solve problems creatively, and how to adapt when conditions changed. The other species had been too proud to learn and too arrogant to listen. Now the galaxy was paying the price for its ignorance. The great interstellar civilization that had lasted for millennia was falling apart because it had been built on foundations that only humans understood. Without those foundations, everything was collapsing into chaos. As the lights in the council chamber flickered and the air grew thinner, Ambassador Crix realized that the humans had not abandoned the galaxy in anger. They had left in sadness after watching their students refuse to learn the most important lesson of all. That survival required more than advanced technology and mathematical perfection. It required the wisdom to build for chaos, the flexibility to adapt to change, and the humility to learn from those who seemed primitive but understood truths that escaped more sophisticated minds. The galaxy was about to learn this lesson, but it might already be too late. 6 months after the humans left, the Galaxy Council faced total collapse. Chairman Vex had moved the emergency government to a mining station in deep space because every major world was either uninhabitable or under attack. The Great Council Chamber, that had housed galactic civilization for centuries, was now a tomb filled with poisonous air. Ambassador Crix led the most desperate mission in galactic history, searching through abandoned human colonies for any clue about where they had gone or how to bring them back. His exploration team had visited 50 empty worlds, finding only ghost towns with lights still burning and machines slowly breaking down. On the former human colony of New Terra, Crix walked through empty streets past homes where families had lived for generations. Children's toys lay scattered in yards as if the kids had been called inside for dinner and never came back out. The silence was more terrifying than any battle cry. The team found messages carved into walls and etched into metal surfaces wherever they looked. You never asked for our help. You just expected. It was written in human script on the side of a power plant that had kept the colony running for 30 years. Another message on a school wall. Read, we tried to teach you, but you wouldn't learn. Each abandoned facility revealed the staggering scope of human contributions that the galaxy had never noticed. Human Dr. Yeo had been treating patients from 12 different species at the colony medical center using techniques that combined alien physiology with human intuition about healing. The medical computers contained thousands of case files showing how Yeo had solved problems that should have been impossible. A crystal being with a cracked core structure that other doctors said was untreatable. Yeo had used sound therapy combined with mineral supplements to help the crystal heal itself. An aquatic Federation citizen with a rare genetic condition that caused painful scale growth. Yeo had developed a treatment using modified plant extracts that no alien doctor had ever considered trying. The treatment worked perfectly, but the formula was written in Yeo's personal shorthand that no one else could read. Similar discoveries awaited the search team on every world they visited. Human solutions to impossible problems were everywhere, but the knowledge of how those solutions worked had walked away with the humans themselves. Back in council space, the remaining alien governments were trying increasingly desperate measures to reverse engineer human technology. The Crystalline Empire had mobilized their greatest scientists to study the stabilization fields that human physicist Nam had designed for their cities. The crystal scientists could measure the field frequencies and map the energy patterns, but they could not understand why the fields worked. Their own mathematical models said the frequencies should create destructive interference that would shatter the crystals instantly. Yet somehow Nam's crude human calculations had created perfect harmony. After months of study, the crystal scientists tried to recreate Nam's work using their own advanced mathematical principles. The result was catastrophic. The new stabilization field lasted exactly 17 minutes before creating a resonance cascade that destroyed the entire research facility and killed 50 of their best scientists. The machine intelligence had better luck analyzing human computer programs until they tried to run them. The human code was full of what the machines called errors and inefficiencies, but when they corrected these obvious mistakes, the programs stopped working entirely. Human programmer Sue had written navigation software that looked completely wrong according to machine logic. The code included seemingly random delays, unnecessary calculations, and strange loops that served no apparent purpose. But when the machines removed these ugly elements, the navigation system could know longer plot courses through hyperspace. The machines eventually realized that Sue's ugly code was compensating for real-world conditions that their perfect mathematical models ignored: gravity fluctuations, magnetic interference, quantum uncertainty, and dozens of other chaotic factors that made theoretical perfection impossible to achieve in practice. Some alien governments began raiding abandoned human settlements looking for instruction manuals, technical guides, or training materials that might preserve human knowledge. But they discovered that humans relied heavily on oral tradition and hands-on experience. The knowledge lived in human minds and human memories, not in databases that could be copied. Human mechanics learned by watching experienced workers and practicing until their hands knew what to do. Without thinking, human doctors developed intuition through years of treating patients and learning from every success and failure. The most desperate council members suggested using time manipulation technology to prevent the human departure entirely. If they could go back and stop the exodus, they could force the humans to stay and keep civilization running. But when they tried to activate the temporal research stations, they discovered another horrible truth. The time manipulation technology was maintained by human scientists. Dr. Ryu had been the Galaxy's leading expert on temporal mechanics, and without her the most advanced time machines were just expensive sculptures. Dr. Ryu had understood time not as a mathematical equation, but as a living, flowing thing that could be gently guided, but never truly controlled. Other species saw time as a problem to be solved with brute force calculations. Dr. Ryu saw it as a river that required patience and intuition to navigate. The temporal research stations contained equipment worth more than some entire star systems, but without Dr. Ryu's knowledge of how to operate them safely, the machines were too dangerous to use. Previous attempts at time travel without proper human guidance had created paradoxes that erased entire timelines from existence. As star systems continued going dark and ancient enemies pressed their attacks against failing defenses, a terrible realization dawned on the surviving council members. The humans had not just left, they had taken with them something that no other species possessed. It was not intelligence, because many alien species were more intelligent than humans. It was not technology, because aliens had built faster ships and more powerful weapons. It was not even knowledge, because alien databases contained more information than human libraries. What the humans had taken was wisdom. The ability to see connections that others missed, to understand that perfect solutions often failed while imperfect solutions somehow worked. To know that the most important problems were not the ones that appeared in textbooks, but the messy, complicated real-world challenges that happened every day. Human engineer Bach had maintained the fusion reactors that powered the Centauri colonies for 20 years. The reactors were old and unstable, with thousands of small problems that should have caused catastrophic failures. But Bach had developed an intuitive understanding of how the machines felt when they were running properly. Bach could walk through the reactor facility and know immediately if something was wrong, just by listening to the subtle changes in sound or feeling the tiny vibrations in the floor. Other engineers relied on computer diagnostics and sensor readings, but Bach relied on experience and instinct. When alien engineers tried to maintain the reactors after Bach left, they followed all the proper procedures and monitored all the correct measurements, but they could not feel what the machines were trying to tell them. The reactors failed within weeks, taking the power grid for 3 star systems with them. The Galaxy was learning the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Information could be stored in computers, but understanding required something deeper, something that humans seemed to possess naturally, but other species had to learn through painful experience. As Ambassador Crix stood in the ruins of what had once been the greatest civilization in galactic history, He finally understood why the humans were called miracle workers by those few species wise enough to notice them. They did not perform miracles through magic or advanced technology. They performed miracles by understanding that the universe was fundamentally chaotic and unpredictable, and that survival required the flexibility to adapt and the wisdom to work with chaos instead of fighting against it. The humans had spent 3 centuries trying to teach this lesson to the galaxy, but the galaxy had been too proud to learn from a species they considered primitive. Now, with their teachers gone, the students were failing the most important test of all, the test of whether they could survive without the wisdom they had been too arrogant to accept. 1 year after the humans departed, Ambassador Crick stood alone in the empty Galaxy Council chamber. The great hall that had once buzzed with voices from 50 different species was now silent and cold. Most of the alien governments had withdrawn to their homeworlds, trying desperately to keep their own people alive as civilization crumbled around them. The massive holographic display still showed the galaxy map, but now it was mostly red warning lights and dark zones where entire star systems had gone silent. The great galactic community that had lasted for 3,000 years was breaking apart into scattered fragments of desperate survivors. Creeks pulled up the final intelligence reports on his personal datapad. The news was worse than anything they had faced before long-range sensors had detected something moving in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. Something ancient and hungry that had been sleeping for 1,000,000 years. The Devourers were awakening. In the old days, this would have triggered immediate action. The Galaxy Council would have mobilized the combined fleets of 100 worlds. Human strategist General Bayek would have developed defensive plans that coordinated species who had never worked together before. But General Bayek was gone, and the species that remained could barely keep themselves alive. The first Devourer scout ships had already been spotted near the outer rim colonies. Their technology was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that seemed to eat starlight itself and left nothing but empty void in their wake. The few survivors who escaped their attacks spoke of creatures that consumed not just matter, but the very essence of life itself. Crix remembered the old stories about the last Devourer invasion 1,000,000 years ago, when the ancient civilizations had barely managed to drive them back into the dark spaces between galaxies. The victory had only been possible because every species had worked together, sharing knowledge and resources in ways that seemed impossible, but that was before humans had come to the galaxy, before there were beings who could somehow make impossible cooperation actually work. The final automated message from the rim defenses played on Crick's display. A terrified alien voice reporting that 3 more colony worlds had gone dark before the transmission cut off into static. That brought the total to 15 worlds consumed in just 2 weeks. The Devourers were not just destroying civilizations, they were feeding on them, growing stronger with every world they consumed. Crix walked to the sealed chamber where the Galaxy Council's most classified records were stored. His access codes barely worked anymore since most of the security systems were failing, but eventually the heavy doors slid open. Inside the vault, he found what he was looking for, a hidden message that Captain Kim had left in the human databases before the departure. Crix had discovered it weeks ago, but had been afraid to watch it until now. With shaking hands, he activated the recording. Captain Kim's face appeared on the display, looking tired, but not angry. The human spoke in a calm voice that somehow made the words hit even harder. "We spent 300 years trying to teach you to work together," he said, "to think beyond your own species, to solve problems instead of creating them. You never learned. You were too proud to accept that a primitive species like humanity might understand something that your advanced civilizations missed." Kim paused and looked directly at the camera as if he could see into the future to this exact moment. "Maybe watching everything fall apart will be the lesson you finally understand. We did not leave because we were angry. We left because we were sad that our students refused to learn the most important lesson of all." The recording showed images of human colonies where people had lived and worked alongside dozens of alien species. Human children playing with young crystal beings, human doctors treating insectoid patients, human engineers working side by side with machine intelligence units to solve problems that none of them could handle alone. "You called us primitive," Kim continued, "but we understood. something that your advanced mathematics could not calculate. We understood that the universe is bigger than any one species, that survival requires cooperation, not competition, that the strongest civilizations are built on helping each other, not dominating each other. More images flashed across the screen. Humans mediating disputes between hostile species. Humans finding creative solutions to resource conflicts. Humans teaching alien children alongside their own humans, dying to protect worlds that were not their own. We tried to show you that diversity is strength, Kim said, that the differences between species are not weaknesses to be eliminated, but advantages to be celebrated. An insectoid mind can solve problems that a crystal being cannot. A machine intelligence can process data that biological brains cannot handle. An aquatic Federation member can survive in environments that would kill anyone else. But you kept trying to make everyone think the same way, work the same way, live the same way. You wanted conformity when what you needed was cooperation. You wanted control when what you needed was trust. The recording showed the final preparations for the human exodus. Ships being loaded not with weapons or treasure, but with books and art and seeds, plants and animals from 1,000 worlds, because humans understood that preserving life was more important than preserving power. We are not abandoning you, Kim said. We are giving you one last chance to learn. The universe is about to test whether you can survive without teachers, whether you can remember the lessons we tried to teach you, whether you can finally understand that working together is not a sign of weakness, but the only path to strength. The recording ended with Kim walking toward his transport ship, but he turned back one final time to look at the camera. When the devourers come, he said, and they will come, you will have one choice. You can fight them separately and watch every world fall one by one. Or you can remember what we tried to teach you and stand together as one galaxy, one civilization, one family. The screen went dark, leaving Crix alone with the silence. As if summoned by the recording, urgent alarms began sounding throughout the DA. Station emergency broadcasts flooded in from across the galaxy. The Devourer main fleet had emerged from dark space and was advancing toward the core worlds. Their massive ships blotted out entire stars as they moved. Crix looked around the empty council chamber and made a decision. He activated the emergency broadcast system and sent a message to every surviving world in the galaxy, to all species who can hear this transmission. He said, the Devourers are coming. We have perhaps days before they reach the core worlds. We cannot stop them alone, but if we work together, if we share our knowledge and our resources, if we finally learn the lesson the humans tried to teach us, we might have a chance. He paused, looking at the empty seats where ambassadors from 50 species had once argued and competed and refused to cooperate. The humans are gone, he continued, but their lesson remains. We can choose to die as separate species fighting alone, or we can choose to live as one galaxy standing together. The choice is ours, but we must make it now. As Crix sent the message into the darkness, he wondered if it was already too late. If the galaxy had learned the lesson the humans tried to teach them, or if they would die still arguing while the Devourers consumed everything they had ever built. The universe was about to provide the final exam, and this time there would be no teachers to help them pass.